Okay, there we go. Hello. Hey. Hello. Basically, what we're doing is we're watching my fucking subscriptions on the stream.
Hey, I created this beautiful logo for my bike shop with Wix logo. Check it out. Go to Wix.com logo. Look, honestly, it's kind of a nothing news day, but you know what? Go ahead and drop it. Hey everybody, welcome. It's Friday, thus a power panel and Experian. Francesca is here as well, and I'm Vanarola. Jake isn't here. Something birthday.
Yeah.
He has them.
He has a day off to actually rest and relax and enjoy his birthday, and he is doing the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
He's on Twitter, he's making business calls.
Somebody doing a live video right now.
He's birthday incorrectly.
That's like as bad as going on like a trip to Italy and tweeting from your trip to Italy on Twitter.
Well, I think he's doing a staycation, but he has earned some sort of overseas trip. Every year, he does try to go to somewhere around the country, though.
Then he stays on Twitter.
Possibly. I'm certainly live video.
Well, he's
YouTube Live is
missing
nothing different.
this big nothing
Tony
burger.
C's
It's just a empty, like pattyless. There's no bun. There's nothing. It's just, it's a burger. It's really good. It's a good. It's like the Impossible Burger.
Hey, that's actually good.
Have you guys tried that yet?
I have. Anyway, we're going to talk about burgers later. Don't worry about more burger talk. We're going to the right place. Number one burger podcast on iTunes right now. Rated 5 burgers and even burger-related review. And then we'll also talk about other things. So we're going to be talking about the DCCC's. Yes, that's true. The DCCC's plan to make it more difficult for primaries to ever take down a Democratic incumbent. We'll be talking about that. There are new sanctions on North Korea, theoretically or briefly. We will break that down. AOC is being targeted by death threats. We're going to identify why that is. And Laura Ingraham decides to try to take down a progressive journalist, possibly exposing her to multiple death threats as well. So, should be a lot of fun throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So why don't we start off with a little an appetizer story. Today, right at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Robert Mueller delivered his finished report and proved conclusively that, I don't know, we don't really know anything that's in it yet. So it came out like an hour and 20 minutes ago or so that the report's going to be released. It's going to be handed over to William Barr. Okay, that's great. I mean, we're going to report on it or whatever, but we won't know anytime soon what's actually in it. Now, I will reveal to you all that we do know, which I mostly just did. But William Barr also had a letter revealing how this thing is going to play out in the future. So we have a section of it. Read it if you can. In part, it says in the middle, I am reviewing the report and anticipate that I may be in a position to advise you on the special counsel's principal conclusions as soon as this weekend. Separately, I intend to consult with Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein and Special Counsel Mueller to determine what other information from the report can be released to Congress and the public consistent with the law, including special counsel regulations and the department's long-standing practices and policies, which will be interpreted however they want. I remain committed to as much transparency as possible, and I will keep you informed to the status of my review. So, he is saying that we might get the thesis statement this weekend, and then we'll see about the rest of it. I mean,
that breath.
Exactly.
That's the best part.
Yeah. So the House voted unanimously that it should be released. Obviously, the vast majority of the population thinks, of course, we should know what they found in this investigation. Only Trump's most ardent defenders and base don't want it to come out. And so we might get those details, but we might not, because William Barr, there's every reason to believe he was put there because he is willing to block the full release of the report.
So we don't know, of course, what the report says, and I hate these non-stop, lengthy conversations that you see in cable news where there's nothing more than speculation about what the report says. So I don't want to fall into that trap, and I don't even think that conversation is interesting.
Well, I do want to do a top 10 list of things that might be. I'm kidding.
But I will say, something happened yesterday that I found hilarious, and I just wanted to make sure that it's on everyone else's radar. So I get home from work, I'm ready to relax. The last thing I want to do is think about news or Trump or anything like that. But I get notifications from some people on Twitter, including Jake. And Jake had tweeted a story about how Trump, instead of saying hi to reporters, just greeted them with no collusion, and walked away. And I just thought that was so funny because it's like someone walking into a room and saying, I didn't steal the $100. I was not the person who stole the $100. You automatically assume that's the person who stole the $100. Like, he self-incriminates. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like your partner walking into the bedroom and going, no adultery. Like, it's great, babe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And pilot gets on the plane, no whiskey. That's great. Maybe too soon.
We're gonna do broad strokes, and then this weekend it seems.
At best, broad strokes.
And then we'll sort of know what else is in it. I mean, I think that no matter where you stand on all this, I mean, we have to know, right, what it contains. I'm worried that it will be inconclusive. I think that's my biggest worry. My biggest.
All of those things he's being looked into for, but everyone likes to conflate all of the investigations as if it's one thing. It's just the collusion thing. No, it's not just collusion. And I'm afraid that if Robert Mueller's report comes out and it's just inconclusive or it's weak sauce, as I said earlier this week, then everyone is just going to dismiss every other thing that he's being investigated for. And that's what we're losing.
Well, look, I think a significant portion of the country, for various different reasons, doesn't care what's actually in it. They've already made up their mind possibly a year and a half ago. I am a progressive, and because of that, I believe in holding the wealthy and powerful accountable if they create crimes. And so whether it's in Robert Mueller's investigation or other investigations being conducted by the Southern District of New York or whatever, I want to know the truth of what's actually happening. And we've been very consistent on that. But what's interesting about this is that he was appointed to the position, Robert Mueller, like 677 days ago. It's been forever. And they got kicked out. No, I just saw it on Twitter. Anyway, and he hasn't really leaked much. And yet we have found out a lot, not through his office, but through others. And what's so interesting is if he had been appointed and we had learned nothing, we just had the information we had on Election Day 2016, 6 months goes by, and then he comes out with a few of the little things that we've learned since then. It would have been big. Like if we'd found out, we never would have imagined that Don Jr. would.
So, you have a cool idea. Maybe you don't know what to do with it. Easy. First things first, you need a website. Putting your idea online is the easiest way to get the ball rolling, and the easiest way to build a better website and
be told that the Russian government wants to get his father elected, and so they're going to meet up to give him dirt. He'd say, I love it. That would have been amazing. But we learned about that like a year ago. So everybody's just like, oh, that's old stuff. Who cares anymore? And so there's a lot of examples like that where so much stuff has been sort of dribbled out. Everything gets normalized and we don't care anymore about it.
I mean, I think, okay, here's why I think it matters. I mean, Anna, you're totally right. It's all these other instances of illegality that have been proven throughout, all the many interviews and people who pled guilty, et cetera, that have nothing to do with the Russian collusion. The thing that fascinates me, though, is that the Russia story is a perfect distillation of all of the ways that he's been scamming people financially, politically, for decades. And it's like, it all comes to this, like, oh, you continue to build a plan to build the Trump Tower in Moscow right after you started your campaign. Right after. So it was a deliberate conflating of like a conflict of interest. Like, no, you walked into that conflict of interest because, as Michael Cohen said, like, you didn't think you'd be elected. And I think the ways that this all is like the cornucopia of corruption, I find really amazing because, trying to hold the powerful and rich accountable and these goons accountable is like, you thought you could get away with sort of the biggest scandal of them all, and we'll see if you do.
Anyway, beyond that, we have no no idea what's in it. It's possible to find out, wake up tomorrow morning, to a notification, or maybe it's breaking right now. I'm not literally on my phone glancing at it, but maybe it's coming out right now. Anyway, we don't know, so there's no reason to go on for a long time. We are going to wait and find out what happens and evaluate based on that. I wish that was a more popular position that people were going to take.
I'm pretty sure our audience finds that to be a popular position.
Oh, definitely. That's why they watch the show, I think. Okay, well, let's move on to a topic we have more information on. That has to do with the DCCC. The DCCC, that's the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, has released a set of new hiring standards, they call them, which are intended to blah, blah, blah. They have a big explanation about it. But what they're intended to do is make it so the primary opponents to incumbent Democratic congressmen or congresswomen have less of a chance of actually succeeding. The way they want to do that is to sort of cut off access to a number of different contractors who work in various elements of campaigns. So I want to read just a couple of paragraphs from their new standards. So they say, to apply to become a preferred vendor in the 2020 cycle, firms must agree to a set of standards that includes agreeing not to work with anyone challenging an incumbent. Yay, democracy! Once you get in, you never get out. So, and then they say, and this is what you have to agree to get that preferred status. I understand the above statement that the DCCC will not conduct business with, nor recommend to any of its targeted campaigns any consultant that works with an opponent of a sitting member of the House Democratic Caucus. And so, I'm happy with some of those who won primaries this last time around. Nothing more self-sabotaging than wishing that AOC and Anna Pomar, Rashida Tlaib, and another campaigns either primary incumbents or running as Democrats and moving the party in the direction it needs to go. That's the reason the Democrats right now. All this thing sees the current landscape and says, I want more boring candidates. I don't want them to question status quo, whether it comes to passport policy in Latin America or taxation or the Green New Deal.
This move is undemocratic, and it also shows you the disgusting level of entitlement the members of the House have right now. The Democratic one can be replaced. Everyone should be held to the same standard, and everyone should do their best to represent the people who elected them. If you don't do that, you absolutely should face a primary challenge. And that's what happened here. And you're right, John. I mean, what was the Democratic Party prior to these freshman Democrats coming in and actually shaking things up and forcing the Democratic Party to pay attention to the will of the people, what individuals voting for them really want. And that includes economic justice. That includes doing something about the environment and climate change. That includes doing something about college affordability and housing affordability. Those issues when they're campaigning, they never put action behind those words. And now all of a sudden you have lawmakers who do want to put action behind those words, and they're staying true to what they campaigned for.
Again, 6:30 to start the coverage of that. It'll go, however long it is.
Probably all day.
Look, honestly, these segments we will be broadcasting at 2at.com/live, tracking the things you're saying. If you want to ask questions and stuff like that, it's fun little
I'll be there at 10, so if you want to hear coaching.
Oh, awesome. Or we'll skip that. Watch the live. Speaking of which, there were some comments. So, Organic Panic said, "Woohoo!" Francesca. So that's fine. Let's see. Darren says that the B room, like I said, it's still things that I don't want to get in trouble. And the Damage Report are two of the best podcasts available at iTunes Store or wherever podcasts are found. The only thing I would add is that obviously filter also.
Thanks, John. But you don't have to work.
Add it.
And also, Jonathan, sit down.
The Habituation podcast, you can say that. Also,
Oh, they got that fast. Yeah. Let's see.
they don't burn junkies on mine.
I don't think we're talking points because I ain't got no interest in them.
You burn down right-wing pundits too. I put them in the trash. Okay, so we've also got some, let's see, these are 2 or 2 lives. Eclectic Miscellaneous says DCCC equals dialing constantly for corporate cash. I like that. That's good. Notorious Lid said Anna, John, and Fran is the ultimate power panel. Cannot get enough for Jessica's sassy brilliance. Bring me the news, beautiful people. That's very positive. And Marty
That's cool.
says DCCC just outed themselves as announced today by the U.S.
Hey, Kevin O'Leary, a.k.a. Mr. One from Shark Tank here. If you're watching this video, that means I'm on my way.
What's going on, guys? My name is Silent Core, and this is week 98 in my weekly countdown series. So I just got this game recently, GTA San Andreas, and I've been playing through it again. And I thought it'd be fun to do 10 things that I think GTA San Andreas did better than GTA 5. Now, obviously, taking a look at the graphics, you can tell this is an old game. This came out in 2004, 2 generations of console ago. So we're not going to be talking about graphics today, only gameplay elements. If you guys do enjoy these videos, please take a few seconds to leave it a like and also subscribe. And let's get right into this. Alright, so first up, let's compare the map size of GTA 5 versus GTA San Andreas. And this scale comparison was put together by List Square, and he actually scales all of the GTA maps in the GTA series together. And as you can see, the GTA San Andreas map was nearly 30 kilometers, which is substantially bigger than GTA 4, which actually came out after GTA San Andreas. And just looking back at the San Andreas map today, you can actually just really appreciate how massive this map was for its time. And even comparing the map size against GTA 5, it still is a very good map size. I think the map layout is also worth mentioning too. In San Andreas, we actually had 3 major cities, which made it feel a lot bigger. And we had a countryside between each of these islands and cities, and populated with lots of small towns. And each city in San Andreas had its kind of own unique feel with it. We had LA with the hoods and the gangs. We had Las Venturas, which was based in Las Vegas, with big fancy lights, the casinos. And then we had San Fierro, which was obviously based in San Francisco, with all the crazy roads and the trams. And comparing this to GTA 5, we actually only have one major city, which is Los Santos, based in Los Angeles, and then basically get a 2 small country towns in this. So it feels like the GTA San Andreas map was actually a lot more diverse. Next up at the number 9 spot are weapon skills. Now, one of my favorite progressions in GTA San Andreas was that each weapon had individual skill progress. So by using a specific weapon, you would get better at using it, and it would actually make that weapon much more effective. So each weapon in San Andreas had 3 different levels of skills. It started off as poor, and then once you start using it, it would progress to gangster level, which would increase your accuracy and aiming options. And then if you manage to use that weapon for long enough to max it out, you'd reach Hitman level, which would increase your accuracy, your strafe speed, and also even your lock-on range, which would improve weapons. So once you go to that level, you get dual-wield Uzis and some of the pistols, and I think even the sawn-off shotgun would be dual-wield, which was pretty awesome. Next up are character skills. And it wasn't that had skills. Your character in GTA San Andreas actually had kind of RPG elements to the way you train up your character. So the more you played it, the better you get at certain aspects. For example, the basic skills such as stamina, respect, that's it. And you also had a few different fun ones such as the gambling skill or even sex appeal by buying better clothes. And as you play through the game, it actually makes you want to be more diverse with the way you play. Because obviously, if you want to level up your bike stat, you're going to have to use bikes going around. And as you level up your bike stat, you're going to be less likely to fall off it and crash. So there's also some different advantages to playing it in different ways. And I felt they would really just kind of help you on this long-term journey to improve all aspects of your character in GTA San Andreas compared to GTA 5. At number 7 spot are building interiors. So in San Andreas, we actually had a whole bunch of accessible interiors, everything from fast food joints, nightclubs, bars, casinos, gyms, police stations, convenience stores, and even your own businesses and properties that you could choose to buy and own. And comparing this to GTA 5, a lot of the buildings don't actually have interiors. You can only see the exterior of it, and you can't go inside it. Now, granted, the graphics are a lot more detailed in GTA 5, so the map's obviously a lot bigger, it would take up a lot more memory and storage to be able to load all these interiors, but it still would be cool to see inside more buildings in GTA 5. At the number 6 spot are body modifications. In San Andreas, the way you actually played your character represented how you would look physically. For example, if you want to look buff, you could hit the gym and start pumping iron regularly and get a big ripped body. However, if you want to, get super fat, you can go to a fast food chain and eat lots of fast food. Your character would actually physically change. Your character would become fat, or even you could stop eating at all and become super skinny. And this actually affected how some people would treat you in the game. For example, there's some girlfriends in the game that would only be interested in you if you were fat. Those cheeky girls. Moving on to the number 5 spot are side missions. So in GTA 5, the side missions we have are things like tennis, we have golf, yoga, triathlons. So it really seems like San Andreas offered us a much greater range of side missions. We had pool, boxing, local school. We got to import vehicles, lowrider challenges, couriers. There's a huge list of achievements of different things you can do. Even, construction dump truck work. There's just so many things and different activities that we could do. And I actually felt like a lot of these activities were left out of GTA 5 to be brought in later as DLC into GTA Online. Instead of GTA San Andreas. Next up are main story missions. So San Andreas had over 100 different story missions you could play. And if you guys haven't played through it, San Andreas actually takes a long time to complete. I played through this again recently, it took quite a while. GTA 5 in comparison only has 69 main story missions. And I can't help but feel like we kind of shortened the amount of missions due to the increased development time it had, just because they had 3 different playable characters compared to just one character in San Andreas. Obviously, when you're coding the game on each mission, you need to make it playable in 3 different ways, basically. And it just made GTA 5 feel like quite a short game. In fact, I was able to complete it to 100% completion in just a couple of weeks. Whereas San Andreas, I swear that took me much longer to complete everything. At number 3 spot is gambling. So in GTA 5, the only thing we can really gamble on are races in GTA Online. But in San Andreas, we could go into actual casinos. We could play the pokies. We could do the spin wheel, there was roulette, there was blackjack. I actually spent quite a while in the casinos just gambling for money and also trying to raise my gambling skill by doing that. Now, there may be some legal implications with including gambling into GTA 5, but obviously they had sharp bars involved, which were able to be purchased by real-life money. So maybe they didn't want kids getting involved in gambling in the game. Maybe there was potentially some legal complications. Next up are airports. So in San Andreas, once you've unlocked all 3 cities, you can actually fast travel to the other airports as a passenger. So you would just go to the airport, you would book a ticket as a passenger, and then you could choose your destination of where you're going to fly to. And it was a super quick way of getting city to city without actually having to drive there. A lot of people don't actually know this, but if you take your passenger flight and don't fast travel straight away, and you just watch the plane take off and get into the sky, you can actually choose to jump out at any time in midair. So it was really cool to see that airports in this game have some sort of commercial use, and it was a really cool way to get around the big cities. And that leaves us with the number 1 spot, and it has to go to the protagonist, CJ. Now, CJ was a really unique character in San Andreas. He started off as this weak, skinny guy from the hood, and you literally had to work to improve yourself in all sorts of aspects of gameplay. And it's kind of in a way similar to Franklin's story in GTA 5, but obviously that one was watered down a lot with the other 2 main characters that were playing that game. But something about CJ's journey in San Andreas felt really authentic. I loved starting out with nothing in a really poor neighborhood, and you'd have to build your gang, work to increase your territory, your reputation, and it really just started to feel like you would own more and more of the city. So that was my top 10 things I think GTA San Andreas did better than GTA 5. If you guys have played GTA San Andreas, let me know in the comments what you guys think that game did better, or even if you disagree with me and think GTA 5 is better, do let me know down in the comments. If you guys haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next countdown. I do release every single week. And leave a like on the video, it only takes a second and really helps out the channel. Have yourselves a great day, and out. Son of a bitch. Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. The much anticipated remakes of the classic games from the PlayStation 1 era are now with us, and with those games come some surprisingly strange glitches. Maybe even more glitches than the original games themselves. So let's kick things off in the first game in that classic stage, Boulder Dash. In this stage, if you die after the last checkpoint, when you return to the part where the boulder drops, it now rolls a lot slower than it should do for some reason. This means Crash can easily outrun the boulder without even breaking a sweat. Now, this is technically a glitch in itself, but the real glitch comes when you make it to the end of the stage and jump on the purple gem platform. Now, there is some timing involved with this, but if you jump on the purple gem platform at just the right point, Crash will actually go through the rolling boulder, but that's not all that happens. If you keep holding down on the control stick to have Crash run towards the screen, eventually the boulder will hit Crash and then start floating off into the distance. You can see it glide majestically through a wall, and then I guess it's going back to its respawn point.
Now the results may vary on this glitch, but this is pretty much the best version of it, so give it a try. Here's a glitch that if you do it just right, will soft lock your game. At the end of the stage Temple Ruins is this corridor with bats that fly down to try and hit Crash. It's possible that Crash can get to the very end of the stage and get hit by these bats at the same time. Now again, this is a timing thing, but if you get it just right, when the stage completion screen appears, Crash is nowhere to be seen, and the game is completely soft locked. The only way to get out of this is to press the PlayStation button on the controller and just start again from scratch. I mean, I know it's called Crash Bandicoot, but I didn't actually mean to crash the game. Here's a glitch that really cracked me up the first time I saw it. It takes place in Crash Bandicoot 2 in the stage The Eel Deal, where you can find these monkey bar sections. What you have to do is slide jump and grab the very edge of where these monkey bars begin, and if you do it just right, this will happen. No, you're not seeing things. That is Crash Bandicoot doing a monkey bar action, swinging just about everywhere, where there are no monkey bars. You're able to take Crash all over this section until you can reach the very end of the stage, and sadly, this whole thing has no real purpose other than to look absolutely ridiculous. This kind of thing is just what I live for. It's a perfect glitch. Now, there are these kind of sections in Crash Bandicoot 3, but sadly I wasn't able to trigger the same kind of glitch. But hey, I'll take this any day of the week. Hey guys, don't mind me, I'm just swinging on by. This is just what Bandicoots do, you know, it's just, it's normal. Crash Bandicoot easily has some of the most entertaining boss fights in any franchise in video game history. And the Insane Trilogy adds a whole new glitchy layer onto that, which makes it even more interesting. For example, let's take a look at Ripperoo. Now, Ripperoo has a very interesting glitch that, well, while it's difficult to pull off, it's very funny when you do. To pull this glitch off, you almost have to perform some kind of choreography just to get the timing down, but it goes something like this. When the big TNT box is just about to reach this spot here at the bottom of the screen, and Ripperoo is just about to jump to this square here, you need to then jump on that same TNT box. When it's about to explode, get clear of it, and then hit to the left side of the screen, ready to jump on this box here. Jump onto this TNT box, and then immediately jump onto this TNT box. If you have the Aku Aku mask, make sure you take damage at some point here, and if you time all this right, Ripperoo should get damaged in the middle of the screen. While he's recovering, jump on the TNT box to his left. He'll jump over it and then take damage yet again, and then all you need to do is jump on this TNT box and then jump into Ripperoo, which kills Crash. This may take a few tries, but with correct timing, what will happen is the boss will restart. But before it has enough time to do so, Ripperoo respawns right next to the exploding TNT box and takes the final hit from the last fight. This confuses the game with hilarious results. What happens is Crash now celebrates beating Ripperoo, but Ripperoo's not actually dead, although he kind of is. It's a really confusing situation. Ripperoo just bounces around the screen now, all blacked out and smoky from the TNT box, but this actually counts as beating the boss. Ripperoo's a pretty crazy character, but I think this is overstepping the mark just a little bit. Another really interesting boss is Nitrous Rio, who likes to shoot these green blob things. It turns out if you destroy one of these green blob things the moment it appears, then this will happen. Oh, take it easy, Doc. Maybe you should put down the colored liquid. Now, as hilarious as this glitch looks, you actually cannot continue this fight, but on the plus side, Nitrous Rio won't be able to hurt you anymore. You're just gonna keep doing that? Yeah, okay. In Crash Bandicoot 3, the boss Entropy also has a strange glitch. Sometimes if you damage Entropy and then fall into the void to lose a life, when the boss fight restarts, Entropy will be invisible and invincible. Naturally, this makes this boss fight impossible to finish, and also you can still get killed because it's Crash Bandicoot. And these games have some really glitchy bosses. Anybody who's ever played the Crash Bandicoot stage Road to Nowhere knows that it's pretty difficult. Well, here's an exploit from the original games that still works in the remakes. All you have to do to avoid the difficult platforming in this stage is jump on the ropes at the sides of each bridge. To avoid falling off the ropes, I'd recommend using the D-pad and just pressing up. When you reach the ends of certain bridges, I do these kind of jumps instead of jumping and just going full hog, because what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself falling off these ropes more than you're staying on them. It's one of the most useful exploits in the game, and I would abuse it as much as you can. Another thing you need
Honey is a free browser app available on Google, Opera, Firefox, Safari. If it's a browser, it has Honey. All you have to do is when you're checking out on one of these major sites, just click that little orange button, and it will scan the entire internet and find discount codes for
lot of in Crash Bandicoot is lives. Oh my goodness, you will need a ton of lives. Thankfully, glitches provide some useful ways of acquiring lives quickly. To even begin this glitch, you're first going to need the green gem, which can be obtained from the Lost City level of Crash Bandicoot. Once you have it, you then need to go to the Castle Machinery level, and there you'll find this green gem platform. Jump on this platform and it'll take you to an area with a ton of lives. Collect all the lives and then press start and exit back to the main map. All you need to do then is save your game and then reload that same save file, and then you can go back into the Castle Machinery level. All the lives will be back, so now just pick them up once again and keep repeating this process. Now this is a really quick way to pick up lives, but the glitch comes into play when you notice that usually you're not allowed any more than 99 lives. The game caps you at 99. But if you keep repeating this process, you'll notice that you're able to go way beyond 99 lives. I was curious to see just how high the lives would go, but I kind of tapped out at 274 lives. I imagine the most you can get is 999, but somebody will have to test that out for me and let me know. In Crash Bandicoot 2, there's a great method of getting lives, albeit a lot slower than the Crash Bandicoot 1 method, but it still works. In the stage Behaving, just head to this pile of beehive, I guess it is, and then just stand in this spot and then simply spin. If you spin at just the right time before the bees are about to sting Crash, what will happen is a bunch of bees will get killed in one shot, and this will generate an extra life. And you can basically sit here for as long as you like getting lives. And like I said, it is a lot slower than the previous method, but hey, you're getting 3 extra lives, so just go with it. While we're still in this stage, I want to talk about something to do with the pits in this game. Now, normally when you fall down a pit in this game, you're supposed to die. However, if you jump down this particular pit, for some reason, Crash is able to stay alive for a brief period of time before the game decides, oh, actually, yeah, you were supposed to die there. It also plays havoc with the lighting for the stage for some reason, but it's not the only one of its kind. If we head to the stage Unbearable, where you get to ride Polar, there's another pit glitch we can experience. If you purposely jump down this pit, sometimes you can get the game to freak out in a crazy way. Polar will continue running down the track so the camera is moving, and then suddenly Crash will raise out of the ground with his arms in the air. It's like some kind of crazy backwards roller coaster. Then Crash will get stuck on a ledge, and the big polar bear will actually go through us, which is kind of weird and gross, and then suddenly this will happen. Crash will teleport and then get stuck in this animation pose, but there's more to this glitch. It may not look like anything's happening, but if we speed up the footage, we can actually see that Crash is rising into the air. And if you wait a good 5 minutes, Crash will eventually just disappear off the screen altogether. It's such a weird glitch, but it's definitely one of the most entertaining of the entire game. It's pretty difficult to trigger these exact results. You may have to try a few times, but it's definitely worth it. Anytime you get to ride Polar opens up a whole bunch of other glitches we can try out. For instance, in the stage Bear Down, if you ride Polar into one of these seals and Crash gets sent flying to one of these TNT boxes, if it explodes, it'll kill Crash in a strange way that when he respawns, he'll actually be taken off the Polar model and you're left with, well, this. I mean, what is this? It's kind of like Crash is riding a mechanical bull. The coolest thing about this glitch is you can still control Polar until you'll inevitably get hit by something and you'll die again. This is just too weird. Oh, but it can get weirder. In the stage Totally Bare, if you grab the stopwatch and before the animation for Crash jumping on Polar happens, press start and then restart the time trial. If you get the timing just right, Crash will try to ride Polar, who's nowhere to be seen, and you'll kind of get stuck in this state. You can press the run button to do this, but there's not really anything else you can do. But there is more to this glitch than meets the eye. If you keep pressing the run button, you'll eventually make your way to the door, and you can actually get outside if you're patient enough. I think you're able to slightly steer Crash to aim him in this direction, but I'm not entirely sure. When I finally managed to get Crash outside, he slowly but surely made his way to the water, and then when he got there, he fell and died. That was pretty much the moral of that story. Don't try to ride invisible polar bears, you will drown and die. And Polar will just kind of watch this whole thing happen, and thanks for the help there, bud. Seriously. Well done. Now onto a glitch that's completely different, which happens in Snow Go. Before you do anything, get the stopwatch to begin a time trial in this stage. What you need to do is make your way to this platform that takes you to the next section of the stage. You need to jump on this platform and then press start with the correct timing and then restart the time trial. And if you get it just right, what happens is Crash respawns and starts the stage, and then you have this crazy dense fog that covers the entire world. And the fog will also lag the game big time. Crash is actually in a weird limbo state right now where the game thinks he's actually on his way to that next section of the stage, but really he's still in the main section. Basically, this equates to Crash now being invincible and unable to be hurt by any enemies. Which, when you think about it, is a really fortunate position to be in when everything kills you. Well, you can still die from pits, but, everything won't touch you. Here's a strange glitch that happens in Crash 3 in the stage Hog Run. All you need to do for this one is start a time trial and then make your way to the big ramp that sends you to the end of the race. What you need to do is veer off this ramp either left or right, and Aku Aku picks you up Lakitu style, press start when you're placed on the road, and then restart the time trial. There's some slight timing with this glitch, but if you do it correctly and you restart the race, you'll actually get to keep that glowing shield that you had when you were placed back on the track. Also, when you get to the end of the race, you can see Aku Aku is still just hanging out. You can actually repeat this glitch multiple times to get a really bright shield and a ton of Aku Aku masks at the end of the race, so give it a try. There's a completely random glitch in the stage Slippery Climb from Crash Bandicoot 1. This will take a good few tries, but if you jump under this platform in a strange way, Crash will actually get launched upwards, and this creates a really cool shortcut for the stage. It's basically just a weird, wonky physics glitch, but it's really funny to watch. And if it skips all that dangerous platforming, well, it's alright by me. And finally, have you ever wanted Crash to just disappear? Well, there's a glitch that'll do just that. In the stage Behaving, I swear this stage is really glitchy, what you need to do is jump up in the air and then press the R1 button to do this slam. If you then spin as Crash hits the ground, sometimes he'll turn invisible. The only thing that clues you into where he is now is the faint shadow on the ground, or if you have an Aku Aku mask, you can see him that way too, I guess. I think this is a really cool glitch, but it does make an already hard game that much harder because you won't be able to see where Crash actually is. And to fix this glitch, all you have to do is burrow into the ground yet again, and everything's back to normal. And that about wraps it up for Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. There are a ton of glitches in this game that I haven't even mentioned, but maybe I'll come back to this game at some point. But for now, have fun messing around with the glitches in Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. And if for any reason you're really interested in what I thought about this game, you can check out the GameSpot podcast episode on Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. I'm joined by Beta64, and she says a boundary break, and we just have a big discussion on whether we even like this game or not. There's only one way to find out. Go watch that. And if you're a big fan of Crash Bandicoot, why not check out this episode of Low Poly, where I discover the history of all the models used in the Crash Bandicoot games up until this point. You can also follow the show on Twitter or any of the other social media to keep up to date on all things Son of a Glitch. And if you really love the show, why not subscribe? And I'll see you in the next episode.
So, you have a cool idea, but maybe you don't know what to do with it. Easy. First things first, you need a website. Putting your idea online is the easiest way to get the ball rolling, and the easiest way to build a better website in under an hour is with GoDaddy. With our website builder, all you do is type in your idea, and it will pop up with unlimited design tailored to your industry. Then you just pick one and go. Add in your text and some pics, and you're done. Boom, publish. See, that's pretty easy. You don't need any crazy tech skills or a degree in computer science. You just need a computer, or a tablet, or a phone. Because you can build and edit your site on pretty much anything. And once your site is up, it has built-in features to help people find it on Google and sites like Facebook and more. Because that's kind of the point of your site, right? To tell people about your sweet new idea. And the best part is, you can start all of this for free. So we're pretty much done here, right? Because you need to go start building your website. Start for free at GoDaddy.com.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct, but it's wordy and hard to read. It undermines the writer's message, and the word choice is bland. Grammarly's cutting-edge technology helps you craft compelling, understandable writing that makes an impact on your reader. Much better. Are you ready to give it a try? Installation is simple and free. Visit Grammarly.com today.
This episode is sponsored by Verve. Click the link in the description below for a free 7-day trial, and stay tuned to the end of the video for more details. You know, in the midst of all the Crash Bandicoot and Insane Trilogy hype, I've noticed a lot of people talk about how Crash is this awesome series. No. Now, don't get me wrong here. Obviously, the Crash Trilogy, as well as Team Racing, those games are classics and should be remembered as such. But even when you want to look post-PS1, you have a game like, say, Crash Nitro Kart. That's actually a pretty good sequel to Team Racing. And a game I actually already did a video on, Crash to Insanity. Now, this game is it's pretty good. But realistically, that's only about a third of the entire franchise, with the license to Crash being tossed around to different developers all the time over the years. Some less than quality titles were inevitable. And boy, did we get some of those. These aren't necessarily the worst of the worst, but these are games that are certainly bad. So before taking a look at what made Crash great in the first place, it's time to take a look at how far he fell. Starting off here, we have Crash Boom Bang for the DS. It's such a weird name, Boom Bang. I get it. I mean, you had Bash beforehand, so you're just going to throw out more B words that come to mind? Okay, sure, I can do that too. So in Crash Bada Boom Bada Bing, you have the choice of a few characters to play as, and despite them being concrete characters, you can rename them whatever you like. I get to rename Crash, huh? All right, let's see here. Ah, perfect. The story begins with this brand new villain, Viscount. Viscount, huh? Something tells me this plot is going to be about money. He is on pursuit of the super big power crystal, and since he is a millionaire and would rather everybody else do the hard work for him, he challenges the lovable cast of characters, plus a shockingly terrifying-looking Aku Aku, to find the crystal, rewarding the winner with $100 million. What? I mean, sure, why not? That's a reasonable amount. I mean, to be fair, with that much money on the line, I would quite frankly do just about anything. Looks like our lucky break. Wow, what a response. And actually, that's about all the story that we get. The game then quickly begins. And there we go. It's a board game. You see, Crash Bash was only a Mario Party clone in terms of it being minigame based. This is full on, everybody rolls a dice and moves along a board. Although, actually, everybody moves at the same time. Take that, Mario. How you win, though, is pretty weird. Each map has a unique goal to work towards, but having the most overall points is what gets you to win. Meaning it is possible for you to win the board's goal, but not necessarily win the whole thing. What? Honestly, the game doesn't explain anything. And heaven forbid you take some time to explore the menu to learn about the items that you can use. Seriously, halfway into reading the first sentence, a 5-second countdown timer pops up before kicking me back into the dice roll. God, what? I'm playing single player mode. What's the rush? As for the minigames, oh god, they're dreadful. Some of them do kinda harken back to the series past, but most of them are just like, hey, sure, a cartoon bandicoot riding a realistic horse. That's the weirdest thing I've seen all day. You're also probably wondering now, what's with all the speech bubbles that are popping up? Well, that's the whole boom bang part of the game. You see, when playing multiplayer, you can distract the player in first place with the simple push of a button. And I gotta say, in single player, it's really fun when the minigame you're playing is purely visual based and you can't see a thing. Oh, it is such a good gameplay mechanic, let me tell you. And I'm not even lying, this is the boom bang part of the game. Because you can customize it and it automatically says boom or bang. That's it, that's the boom bang. I can't, that's so dumb. I am like so confused. I don't know what happened here, but Sonic Bada Boom Bada Bing is just terrible. I couldn't even bring myself to complete the really short story mode. I got really close, but I, and actually none of my opponents, were able to discover the last item that we needed to complete the map. And after the, and I really wish I was joking here, 7th time in a row I played this stupid Titanic game I gave up and nearly snapped my 3DS into. Quite frankly, the fact I made it through 6 of them, I guess that means I have a problem, actually. It's easy to assume that the portable scene is where Crash had it the worst. I mean, the DS gave us Boom Bang for crying out loud. And you would also assume that if we went further back down the timeline, the Game Boy Advance, oh no, the GBA and Crash Bandicoot, that has to be a match made in hell, right? I know you're thinking that. Wrong. The Huge Adventure and Entrance are 2D platformers that do end up recycling elements from the PS1 games, but considering those games had plenty of side-scrolling elements, this actually works pretty well, and they're fun. They're certainly better than the fate that Spyro had on the console, and hell, even Crash Nitro Kart was a pretty good game on here. However, this game really sucks too. Crash Purple Ripto's Rampage. Wait. Ripto? Yeah, that's right. Ripto from the Spyro the Dragon series. And hey, would you look at that, here is Spyro Orange, the Cortex Conspiracy. You got Mario and Sonic, Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright, Kratos and Fat Princess. Alright, maybe not that one. Crossovers are something that video game fans always dream of, and Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon are no exception. Working what seemed like hand in hand during the PlayStation 1 days, so much so that demos of each series were found in the others' games, it didn't really matter to anybody that the original creators no longer had the franchise rights. We wanted a crossover. And well, we got one, I guess. You know what? Let's give it a shot. The story begins with Cortex and Ripto concocting a plan to defeat both Crash and Spyro. And their best idea? Put masks of Spyro on the enemies to fool Crash into thinking that Spyro is the bad guy. Oh my god, this is one of the worst games I've ever played. So naturally, Crash goes out to stop whatever bad stuff is going on, and of course, collect crystals and gems along the way. And the way you get them is by completing minigames. Again, some of them do sort of make sense in context of the series, but something like blowing up sheep with a bazooka to prevent them from running into nitro crates, thereby blowing themselves up, I don't know, that seems to be a bit counterproductive. Come on, Crash, you can do it, yeah! I mean, like Boom Bang, I could spend time here talking about the minigames, but they really are just all bad. The entire single-player story mode only takes like 2 hours, and most of the minigames get repeated multiple times. At least it's better than Boom Bang in that respect, because I didn't have to play the same minigame over and over. Credit where credit is due, I suppose. And hey, Crash brings his own Game Boy Advance on the adventure. Not even he wants to play this crap. Further along in the story, you eventually encounter Spyro, and since they think each other is the bad guy, meaning I guess the bad guy's plan actually kind of worked, they settle their differences by tossing Molotov cocktails at each other over a moat. That's classic Crash. Honestly, nothing else throughout the adventure is even remotely interesting, and things end off with, of course, a fight against both Cortex and Ripto. And when the final boss has a 60-second time limit, you know you're in for a treat. And by treat, I mean it's super easy and shockingly laggy. Spyro promises to help out whenever trouble arises once again. Crash then puts him in a headlock. Done. Oh, and as for Spyro Orange, yeah, that game is even worse. And I think Hunter agrees. But fine, you know what? Maybe talking about 2 minigame collections is not necessarily the best barometer for how bad Crash used to be. I can fix that. Let's take a look at the 2 last console games to ever be released before this game saved the Bandicoot. Oh boy. Now, I have negatively talked about both of these games before, but honestly, Crash of the Titans, it's actually pretty cool. Rather than being a pure platformer, the developers opted to make a game that's more of a beat-em-up. And aside from moronically locking the spin ability until like 20 minutes into the game, the combat actually works pretty well. It is super simple. Crash is simply fun to control. You level up often. Each chapter has certain goals that give you collectibles. It is legitimately a pretty good game. The Wii version even does the whole points to gather items thing 1 month before Super Mario Galaxy did it. And sure, all of the redesigns are pretty weird, and I don't really understand the whole adding tribal tattoos to Crash thing. I also can't fathom what in the hell they did to Uka Uka. But if the discussion here is talking about Crash Bandicoot post PS1, I would definitely say at the very least, this is better than Wrath of Cortex. Yeah, that's right, I said it. The main gimmick of the game was the ability to possess a bigger mutant thanks to Aku Aku, which you can then control for a while for more combat. And the game actually does strike a decent balance of Crash gameplay and mutant gameplay. There's a bunch of different mutants too, so there's quite a bit of variety there as well. So then just how did they completely ruin it in the sequel, Mind Over Mutant? Well... I got a whole list of reasons here. For one, every major cutscene is presented in a different style. You got hand puppets, standard cartoons, black and white, old school superhero cartoons, South Park. What? That's just South Park. I mean, I guess they were trying to go for something cute here, like, hey, look at all of the characters in these wacky different styles. But after a game that already completely changed the Crash Bandicoot formula, all of these random cutscene style changes just gives the game a complete lack of identity, when basically all of the plot development is told this way. It's dumb. For all that is good and holy on this planet and universe, there's a cutscene where Uka Uka is being fed cake while hooked up to a milking machine, and it's presented in the style of South Park, and I cannot believe that's a sentence.
I was so tired of that guy. Felt like I buried my mother. Not that I thought about that.
As for the gameplay itself, honestly, it's just the same but worse. It now goes for a bit of a pseudo-open world thing, though unlike Crash Twinsanity, which actually did that fairly well, this is really just a series of linear pathways leading off of Crash's house. So it's really not open world, and I'm unsure why they went with that idea in the first place. Oh yeah, some of the characters got redesigned again. I mean, that's a sign of good confidence right there. I don't know who designed both remodels of Crunch, but they're bad. And to be completely honest with you, the game just sort of happens. Your first goal is to gather machine parts for Coco to finish her experiment. This leads to a pretty basic linear area that gives you a good amount of time to get used to how the game plays. And again, since Titans felt okay, this is actually totally fine. You quickly get back to your house and give Coco the parts, and after a cutscene, it's time for the second mission. And that's the whole mission. And then in no time, the game gets super boring, super quick. You just keep getting told to go down different linear trails, and there's absolutely no challenge whatsoever. Just go from point A to point B. Constant repetitive combat that never really gets any harder. Nearly endless mutant usage, eliminating the whole mutant Crash balance of before, and a ton, and I mean a ton, of backtracking. You have to go back and forth through the snowy area like 3 or 4 times, and it doesn't change. There's a couple new enemies, but you're really just doing the same thing over and over again. And to add fuel to the fire, there's actually one area in the game about halfway through where you randomly teleport to your destination instead of being forced to backtrack and walk there. And I gotta tell you, after already doing a lot of backtracking, I kind of felt offended. And sure, if you haven't played either of these two games, much of Mind Over Mutant is going to sound similar to Crash of the Titans. But in Crash of the Titans, you at least had goals within every level of taking out a certain number of enemies or getting a high combo. So while the combat was super simplistic, you still have to do a fairly good job of it. Your combo doesn't go away until you take damage. It's not time-based like in Titans, even eliminating that challenge. And there's just no sense of escalation here either. The game never strays away from its basic idea, and when it does, it's usually something pretty dumb. Like, oh, hey, look at this. It's a mutant that you've never seen before doing Michael Jackson's Thriller dance without fitting music in the background. Because, of course. Well, the best part about the game, at least, is they decided to bring back Embryo. That's cool.
Yes, it is I, Embryo.
Oh, God, whoa. Did I just enjoy something from this game? This is so weird. Everything about the game seems so poorly done, but Embryo is legitimately really funny.
I was in the first game.
He's constantly going about inventing everything, and even tosses in some random real-world references. He comes off as so over-the-top and crazy. At one point, he even says he wrote the Bible.
Read your Bible, I wrote it.
I have no idea what happened during this game's development, but Embryo is seriously the only highlight of this game. And then there's a boss fight that he's not even involved in. He's just sort of in the background. And then once that fight is done, he's out of the game. He just goes away as a cute little cartoon, parodying that scene from The Incredible Hulk. What a way to go. Back when this game first came out, I honestly had really high hopes for it after enjoying Titans. But at least now it sort of makes sense how this was the last major Crash Bandicoot game before the series went into a nearly 10-year-long hiatus. Did that spacesuit-wearing bird just spread its cheeks and fart poison gas at me? Okay. I need to go lay down. Man, all those games, they were definitely pretty bad. At least the bad Crash games are going to make the Insane Trilogy all the sweeter, right? So there's some good news. That's still a couple days away. I need a good pick-me-up in the meantime. I got it. I'll watch some anime on Verve. I'm glad you asked. Verve is a service
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire,
About a year ago, I took a bit of a different look at one of my favorite childhood franchises, Crash Bandicoot. As much as I love that orange marsupial and some of his games, when you really look at the entire franchise, oh, that boy has been through some tough times. Like, immediately after Naughty Dog no longer handled these games, Crash Bash happened. And relax, I'm not going to go on a big Crash Bash hate fest here. It's a fine enough minigame collection, but it was pretty obvious that quality control stopped being as much of a priority here. Seriously, what is this Kiddy Kong's drunken uncle looking thing? I never want to see this again. And yep, you called it. There are a few more rough patches in this franchise I want to look at before it's all said and done. Got them all right here. This should definitely be a time, all right. A time of which I don't think I should do it alone. Apparently it's like a Crash Bandicoot month or something like that. I think it's time that we phone a friend. Just kidding. The whole idea of calling someone that you're collabing with, that's really cliche. Realistically, we've been working on this for months. So, Caddy, you ready?
No, actually.
Awesome. And with that, I say we get started with, okay, what'd you just say?
I've been working on my own Crash Bandicoot videos for a while now, so I haven't had time to look at any of the games that you're going to be talking about.
All right, fair enough. Actually, since you're not all that familiar with these games, I could just, show them to you and show you what you've been missing out on. This will be interesting. I'm digging this. Could I, real quick, borrow your slaughter gun? I could actually use that.
Absolutely not. Get your own.
Noted. Let's get started.
Crash Bandicoot on Game Boy Advance sounds like a recipe for disaster. A good rule of thumb is portable version of console game equals bad, but I'll be damned if these games are really good. Well, kind of good. Oh my god, what the hell is that? Rather than focusing on being original, the two games simply remix themes from the classic games and makes new level designs around them. And even cooler, these games were
developed by Vicarious Visions, the guys responsible for the Insane trilogy and also Crash Purple. Oh no.
Another Crash game that doesn't get enough credit is Crash of the Titans. Not an awesome game by any means, but despite being more of a brawler than a platformer featuring a weird tribal tattooed Crash, it's still a worthwhile playthrough. And you can see where I'm going with this. Crash of the Titans on Game Boy Advance. Oh boy. Okay, yep, this is going to be a bit rough. So the plot is pretty similar to the console game. Aku Aku has been kidnapped, Cortex is going to take over the world, they somehow expect us to believe that Uka Uka can talk without a mouth, Dingodile is here. What? He wasn't in the console game, but they put him in this one. It was weird he wasn't in the console game anyway, because he's one of the best characters in the series, but he said, okay, this game has that going for it.
Oh wow, 1 second in, this already looks way worse than the actual Crash GBA games.
Oh, it controls a lot worse too, don't you worry there.
Everything here just looks rough. The sprites are trying to pretend to be 3D models, and that doesn't work. The music is annoying too. This short loop is driving me insane. Insane. Oh, Cortex on level 1 with blue hair. How'd they get that wrong? Well, that just happened.
And with that, Aku Aku is saved, and now we can finally jack enemies again.
I'm sorry. What did you just say?
Jack, you jack enemies. That's one of the main mechanics of the Titans games. You take Aku Aku, and you can jack enemies. This is a family channel. Behave yourself.
I don't know what that was.
Well, this is weird. The crystals returned, but they're used for invincibility instead. Okay? The invincibility lasted all of 2 seconds. Incredible.
I'll believe you that the console game is pretty good, but this version looks bland and repetitive. All I've seen you do is walk to the right and mindlessly bash enemies with no challenge whatsoever. Levels go on for far too long with no interesting set pieces. This is the type of game that parents get their kids to ask for Crash of the Titans but didn't know it was actually on a home console. And now he's using Aku Aku on a jet ski and a bit looking like Mario is missing. Alright, can we move on, please? Thank you.
Gladly. Now we have Crash of the Titans DS. Oh boy, here we go again. Okay, you know what? This is a nice touch. The title screen is a throwback to Crash 1. That's pretty cool. And honestly, as ready as I was to trash this game to Kingdom Come, it's actually kind of good. The opening cutscene this time is animated in a 3D space. It is even fully voice acted. And, oh my god, it's Crash running down a corridor like the original games. It just has the whole beat 'em up and jacking enemies mechanics, but it's actually fun here. The differences between this and the GBA version are just, wow. You get rewarded for finding collectibles, levels are more varied thematically, there are these bonus side-scrolling rooms, also like the original games. Wow. I'm stunned.
That's pretty crazy, honestly. How is nobody else talking about this game? I certainly don't massively approve of the changes Crash took with this Titan reboot stuff, but for what they were given, this looks surprisingly solid. There are even sections where you get to play as Nina on the quest to transform little woodland creatures into giant monsters. I like it. I like it a lot. And didn't the sequel get a DS port too?
Yeah, it did actually. After being pleasantly surprised with Crash of the Titans DS, I am more than ready to feel that way about Mind Over Mutant. Okay, the title screen is a single JPEG now. Oh no. Oh no. Well, I guess all the budget here went into making this helmet model spin. Okay, so obviously the cutscenes are way worse here. But you know what? Crash doesn't need to have a really good story anyway. The gameplay is where it shines. Oh no.
A side-scroller now. Why? Wow, this looks so much worse. Isn't the DS a console known for poor handling of full 3D games? How is the full 3D game the good one and the side-scroller the bad one?
Your guess is as good as mine. This This is honestly terrible. The level design is more mind-numbing than Titan's GBA. The combat is more repetitive as well. The mutants are useless. Some enemies use 2D sprites, so they really don't blend in at all with the 3D Titans. Have you ever just had a game that's so bad that you physically couldn't bring yourself to play more of it? Yeah, that's this game right here. I would love to keep playing this and see what the rest of it has to offer. Believe you me, I am telling the truth here. I just can't do it. This is probably the worst Crash Bandicoot game in the entire series. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, after all this, I don't feel so bad not following Crash after the reboot because most of these look bloody terrible. But there is one bad Crash game I'm familiar with, and that's Crash Tag Team Racing. I haven't played it for a while. You're going to do the video with that, aren't you?
No. I would never do that. I would warn you beforehand if we were. Yes, we're doing that.
When we started planning this collab months ago, why didn't you warn me you were going to torture me?
And ruin the surprise? Where would be the fun in that? Come on now, it's time for some good old Crash Tag Team Racing. Let's go.
I swear, you make a million Kirby videos, and all of a sudden you think you're a big shot. You're pushing all these British people around. I just want to play video.
So Crash Bandicoot has quite a bit of a pedigree in the kart racing department. Crash Team Racing, fantastic. That game is so good. Even now, it's still so awesome. Crash Nitro Kart, not as awesome as the original game was, but still a good time if you want the original game, but it just looks a bit better. So when we were promised a third game of this genre, I was pretty interested. And then color me shocked to start platforming before I ever stepped foot in a car. What? Hold on a second. Yeah, okay, that's not what this is. This is really weird. So Crash and the crew got thrown into this big amusement park filled with racetracks, but you actually get to fully explore the park, collecting a bunch of coins, taking on quests, doing some platforming, knocking the hell out of some NPCs. It's not that bad, actually. Oh, wait. I can trigger this, apparently. What happens here?
Oh my god.
What in the hell was that? It's a diorama. Cause die. Oh, that's sick.
There's a bunch of these throughout the park, and honestly, these just make me super uncomfortable. It's just Crash dying violent deaths. Comedy? Ah, hello, citizen. How are you enjoying the park today? Can you believe how much the souvenirs cost? Ooh, a photo booth. Interesting. Oh, this video just got demonetized.
There's a handful of weird carnival games too. Like here, you shoot flying birds with chickens. What? I played this game for about an hour before even thinking about doing a race. And I enjoyed my time too. That's the thing. It's very weird. Just because I could. I really tried to prolong the time it took before I got to the first race. And honestly, it turns out that was for the best. The racing is pretty bad. There's this brand new clashing mechanic that transforms the game from Mario Kart 64 to Double Dash on the fly. At the push of a button right next to someone else's vehicle, you just merge into one. And despite having some really bizarre story with some sort of hell creature that this thing is, nothing explains why you can do this. You just can now. The problem is, though, your partner has unlimited ammo, and they're a good shot, and you can use the clash at any time. So it is a guaranteed first place because your partner will just shoot anybody who comes in your way. Or you know what, better yet, just let the computer drive for you and at the last minute just get away and take all the credit. The game tries to be clever, like you can unlock a track's shortcut by finding a secret switch in the overworld, but as a kart racer, yeah, it's bad.
Tag Team Racing is so weird. It's not necessarily a terrible game, it's just a bad racing game and a bad platform mixed up with it. So wouldn't that make it a bad game since it's being marketed as a racing game and I'm having more fun watching Crash die? I'm a very bad person.
You are sick in the head, my friend. Oh, this is weird. There's a chicken that you can talk to. Collect the chickens before the time runs out. Okay, I'm up for a collectathon. This should be Oh my god, the park has been infiltrated with T-posing chickens. What a racing game. Well, I can certainly say that my mind has been awakened here. What did you think about all this, Kenny?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Insane trilogy, thank you very much. I watched this first Bandicoot month I was doing to go perfectly, so I suppose it's a good thing I knew about these games beforehand.
There were a bunch of Crash games that were released on mobile devices, and a surprising amount of canceled games as well, so I'm not really done with the franchise just yet.
Before we go though, have you ever tried mashing buttons on Crash Tag Team Racing's loading screen?
I really don't like where this is going, but okay. This collaboration's canceled. The parallels between Crash and Spyro go much farther than the original trilogy. After both franchises' massive success on the PlayStation 1, new developers came through and ruined all of our hopes and dreams. It was like at the same time, too, it was pretty impressive. But then, something new was created to spice things up. And after fans reacted with, alright, not bad, bam! What happened? What did you do to our poor boys? Well, since we've already gone over the weird life and times of Crash Bandicoot post PS1, I guess now it's time to take a look at Spyro and give him the same treatment.
Did someone say Crash?
Jordan Fringe from the YouTube channel Jordan Fringe? What a coincidence! What do you want?
Well, seeing how I just got done talking about Crash Bandicoot on my show, Nerdstalgic, on my channel, I figured I'd stick around and talk about it with you since you're clearly talking about it.
You were not given permission to do so, but okay, we are not talking about Crash today. We already did that. We're talking about Spyro, actually, and given the circumstances, I think you still fit in. Don't you have a couple of Spyro tattoos?
You know it. Hey, what Spyro games are we talking about then? Is this a reunited trilogy video?
Close, very close, but no, actually we're going to take a look at the Legend of Spyro trilogy instead. People were asking me to cover this for a while, and it always seemed interesting. Like, it's one of the more infamous things about this franchise. Jordan? That's not a good sign, is it? The Legend of Spyro, also known as what if we gave Spyro a giant forehead? So I've said this before, but I was a fan of A Hero's Tale. It's not an amazing game, but it's not Enter the Dragonfly bad either. The reviews at the time, however, were a bit middle of the road. So I guess it was time for a full-on series reboot. Probably explains the whole new beginning thing. The goal here was to completely rework the origin story of our little purple dragon here. And they certainly did that. I could say that much. This, of course, led to a trilogy of games, this time with a fully interconnected plot. Now, like I said, this is like my first time really diving into these games. All I really know about them is that the fans of the franchise, and more so the originals, tend to choose to forget these games existed. And it's very easy to go into this video expecting all three games to be crap, and then I just rant for 20 minutes, bada bing, bada boom, we're done. But I'm going to go into this with as open of a mind as I possibly could. I also went for the whole each game on a different console thing. I like to live dangerously. Oh, wow, okay. You know what? Not a bad first impression. Chrome Studios, the developers of Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. Okay, I like those games quite a bit. I am now very interested to see what I've missed out on all this time.
Who you of the dragon?
Ha! Prophecy foretells that every 10 generations, a purple dragon will be born. A dragon that will become very powerful. That dragon is now here in an egg in a special temple. However, that resting spot goes under attack, and in order to protect the egg, the elder dragon Ignitus floats it down a river. It eventually reaches a swamp and is then discovered by a family of dragonflies, and Spyro is then raised under them. alongside Sparks.
Seeing and catching are two different things, my big boy.
Oh God, no, he talks. I mean, he did talk in A Hero's Tale too, but oof, it's not good voice acting going on here. Why do they think David Stade was a good idea? Like, who was watching Joe Dirt and was like, oh yeah, he could be a dragonfly? Anyway, after getting into a battle to protect Sparks from enemies, Spyro discovers that he can actually breathe fire, and he is in fact not a dragonfly, but just a dragon. You know, I would have thought that at this point in his life, he would have questioned the whole size difference, body difference, the ability to walk, a lot of things by now, but okay, sure. Eventually, the duo run into Ignitus, who informs our hero that their lands have been overrun by the Dark Armies. It's a bunch of apes. Okay, yeah, sure, why not? I've given up the fact that this has nothing to do with the original games. It is then up to Spyro to travel to different locations to save the other Elder Dragons and stop the evil head honcho, Cinder, before it's too late. And that's it for the story. Very simplistic. There are a bunch of interactions that happen along the way with a handful of brand new characters, for sure, but for a game opting to take an established, bright and colorful world and make a storyline that's more dark and serious, to have really bare bones story progression, kind of surprised. I just feel like the idea of maturing and cute and cartoony character never makes sense. These are not games that need dark and gritty reboots. Need I remind you of Sonic 06? That's the obvious one. Don't even get me started on what they did to poor Bomberman. So, you know how the previous games were all about free exploration and platforming to collect a bunch of shiny gems? Yeah, that has been completely thrown out the window. What we now have is a beat-em-up that is so incredibly repetitive that 20 minutes into the game, you've basically experienced the entire thing. Oh man, look at those sick combos. You do get different breath abilities throughout the story, each one being slightly different than the other. That is one of the better ideas that Enter the Dragonfly introduced into the franchise, but it really doesn't matter all that much since now you'll be prioritizing close combat instead. The different breath abilities that sort of help Spyro be unique as a character are now more so just for crowd control. And every time you unlock a new one, they force you into such a long and drawn-out tutorial. That's one thing this game has going for it. My God, it drags on. Essentially, what we're presented with here is a non-stop string of linear rooms that sometimes just stops your progression by tossing a ton of enemies at you. They often try to block your path with optional enemies too. I skipped as many of these things as I could. Really now, why would I waste the time? I ain't getting any younger here. You do get these special gems that you can power up your abilities with, but even with skipping basically every optional battle, I still did pretty okay. There is barely any platforming here, and what is here is very simplistic. There's only a puzzle here or there, very, very sporadically to complete, and I would hardly call them a puzzle anyway. And any true sense of challenge is non-existent, because if you die, oh, you can just come right back into the battle where you left off. No worries, bro. There's like this flying section that shows up before the second chapter. Look at this. Are you not excited? I could probably just pick a corner and stay there, and I would make it to the end. But you know what? I will give the game some credit. The couple times that it chooses to not be stupid dark, it is kind of pleasant to look at. So that's nice. But really now, The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning is a premium example of a game that is purely about padding to fill out the gameplay length. The combat is here as a force to stop you on your quest, but the combat is not fun. Some new enemies do have these unique strategies that you gotta think about, but it's really just a matter of when to button mash them until they die. Yeah, skipping them is a lot faster, but mindlessly walking forward isn't fun either. I was at least hoping that the bosses would be interesting. They're the big ones, man. These are the things we're fighting towards. But nope, they all sucked too. And even though I said this before, I cannot reiterate this stronger. This game moves so damn slow at times, I am honestly flabbergasted. Look at this. This is by far the slowest elevator I've seen in my damn life. It is insane to me to think that they thought this was the best way to move Spyro forward. The thing is, though, the developers at Chrome Studios did the Ty the Tasmanian Tiger trilogy, which is another series of games that had platforming elements and beat-em-up elements. And those games aren't bad. how did they screw this up? The story is conceptually kind of interesting, but the gameplay is so mediocre that it is not worth playing through it to experience it. Coming from someone who did play through it. Eventually, Spyro runs into Cinder, and after a couple of battles, one of which takes place in space, I guess, also jellyfish, Cinder, who was actually transformed under the Dark Master's power, returns to her normal dragon self. Spyro then saves her before the realm collapses on top of them. Sparks tries to be funny, which honestly is a common theme throughout the entire game. Credits. Man, this game blew. I know I skimmed through this game like it was nothing. That's the thing, though. This game is nothing. The only part of the entire adventure that I actually liked was like, okay, early on you see like these gems, right? My instinct at first was to immediately hit it and get what was inside it. But then Sparks asks me why I did it, and then Spyro just says, oh, I just had to, and the power of 1,000 suns filled his body. Like, what? That's pretty good. Okay, wait, no, I take that back. Actually, the best part of the game were these randomly generated enemy names. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but oh man, it is funny. Goober Doomgrin, Riftabule Streak Wanderer, Brown Shoot Woodbeard, Fisty Warlord. Fisty, okay. Oh, never mind. Don't like that one bit. It seems like a neat idea on paper. You know, let's give Spyro a female counterpart. Sure. This is a bad video game. And you may be asking, well, did people really ask for a sequel? No, I'm pretty sure no one asked for a sequel. But really, who cares what we want? Because a year later, we got The Legend of Spyro: The Eternal Night. More like I wish for eternal rest. I did choose the Wii version this time around because I figured, hey, if I'm going down swinging. That's the best you're going to get out of me this episode. Let's get the game started. Oh man, the icon it's so stretched. I'm already dreading this. The game begins with a retelling of the last game's ending.
What? Save the Beast has been trying to kill us?
Alrighty then, 2 games in and they couldn't manage to keep the same voice actor for one of the main characters. That's a good sign. Now it's Billy West, sounding exactly like Fry from Futurama. Therefore, it's impossible to imagine anything else. Red. So Cinder, feeling grief for causing so much trouble last time, runs away, believing she doesn't belong at the Dragon Temple. Spyro goes after her. Yeah, that's the story. You go after Cinder again. And naturally, he, of course, no longer has the powers that he gained last time. He apparently lost them all during that last battle. Sure, you gotta find out some way to give us another long and drawn-out tutorial at the start of the game. But then the gameplay starts up, and I gotta tell you, it's the same exact thing as the first one. I am actually very impressed with how similar it is. It's just another overly repetitive beat-em-up. The level design sometimes now provides some more chances for platforming. That's kind of cool. I can appreciate that. You can now slow down time. For some reason, they explain it in the story, but why? Why does Spyro slow down time? And thankfully, despite picking up the Wii version, motion controls are totally optional. That was like my one saving grace. Now, in terms of combat, the first game wasn't super easy, but it was incredibly forgiving. Now, in Eternal Night, the battles are more difficult. I would go as far as to say sometimes they're downright challenging, and they do penalize you for dying. Nothing quite says punishment like having to rewatch pre-battle cutscenes. Making more challenging combat does sound like a good thing on paper, but since the game is still so button-mashy, the difficulty here comes in the enemies getting out of their stun a whole lot faster, so they have more chances to attack you mid-combo. They do change up how the elemental breaths now play out, so that's kind of refreshing. Some of the boss battles even play out sort of differently as well. You know what? The game does actually have some ambition shining through. Oh, wait, the boss just healed itself. Never mind, this went back to being bad. My favorite part of what I played in this one, they acknowledged the whole Sparks eating butterflies thing. That was pretty funny. Never mind. So, guys, I actually have a confession to make. I physically could not bring myself to complete this game. The first game was already such a struggle to play through, and now the second one is just more of the same. but with incredibly cheap difficulty. I got to this fight with these two scorpion things, and this was the final straw. I was stuck on these things for like 20 minutes. They're nearly impossible to hit. If they hit you, you'll be stun locked and then just hit again. Sometimes these cannonballs get shot at you and you take even more damage. If you weren't already having a bad time, I was already not liking the game, but this was my breaking point. I kind of just feel like nothing when playing this game. Arguably, that's how I feel at all times. But playing this game increased that feeling drastically. Maybe the story picks up if I were to play it more. I've heard that a bunch. But I'm not going to force myself to play a bad game just to experience a couple cutscenes. At that point, I may as well just read the Wikipedia article. Okay, we're almost done here. 2 games down, 1 to go. This one made the jump to HD consoles. We got The Legend of Spyro, Dawn of the Dragon. So this third game here is actually not developed by Chrome, the developers behind the last 2 games. Well, damn. Okay, I may actually have something to look forward to now. So the plot with this one starts out with Spyro and Cinder encased in crystal in an effort to protect them from whatever happened at the end of Eternal Night. I told you I didn't beat the game. I'm just gathering what information I could from this opening cutscene. 3 years have passed, and the 2 have been freed from their prison by these weird-looking things. They've matured up, too. Man, Spyro looks even weirder. Oh, cool, the first thing we do in this game is combat. My expectations are being met already. What the? Don't let them escape. My guy, you freed them. Eventually, though, our duo, of course, escape. And hey, it's Sparks with, guess what? A new voice actor. Yeah, little stiff. Voice keeps changing. Ha. Rounding off the list of Sparks voice actors is Wayne Brady. They really didn't even try to get voice actors that sounded similar. And the one responsible for helping them escape? It's Hunter. Oh, okay. I thought Spyro's redesign wasn't great. But what the hell happened to Hunter? He just looks like a generic cheetah now. That's expressed even more so when we enter his village to an entire tribe of them. Bro, it's the middle of the day. What are you talking about? Take off your stupid hood if you can't see me. Okay, you know what? I know I'm sounding very salty right about now, but I will give the game credit. The tutorial actually has you do things, rather than just locking you into a tutorial room. Wow, it's like really obvious that new developers were used this time around. Things feel so shockingly different. For one, you can swap control between Spyro and Cinder at any time. The game can in fact be played in co-op. You 2 are tethered together with like this magic rope thing. Sure, whatever, any excuse to keep the 2 characters within arm's reach of each other. But they can also fully fly now, as opposed to just gliding, so aging them up actually makes sense in terms of gameplay. Now that they've matured, they can fly. The game will often change the camera position, too, keeping things a bit more visually interesting. There is some unnecessary button mashing moments here and there, as well as some QuickTime events. No one likes those. But I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of okay with this so far. And then when you make it out of this tomb, you get introduced to the reinvented world of Avalar. And man, this is very pretty. And all the animations that happen during cutscenes, there is a lot more life put into them. This is genuinely good stuff. What we had for the last 2 games was a bunch of linear rooms stringed back to back. What we're presented with now is actually an open world where you're totally free to fly around and discover things at your own leisure. And as you're flying, this sweeping, really powerful music plays, and it just feels nice. However, as quick as the game was just getting good, it takes a nosedive just as fast. Man, the frame rate here is terrible. Maybe it's better on Xbox 360 or even the PlayStation 2, but on PS3, this game chugs if you're flying too fast. And the tethering mechanic sounds fine for the sake of co-op, but they didn't factor in that the other character, when played by a computer, will often get stuck, preventing you from progressing and making exploring a lot less enjoyable. Like here, I just want to go off this little bridge and start exploring the grassland. Spyro's preventing me from doing so. So okay, let me swap to him to get him unstuck. And then he says, "Move it, Cinder." I'm glad dragons are extinct. Sadly, once we move on to the next chapter, things fall right back into the status quo. Mindless button mashing until the game says you can move on. It's such a disgusting tease. Every time you think you're done, nope, here's a few more. Keep pushing the square button, you big dumb. If the game just simply doubled down on the whole open world thing, we may actually have a solid game here, but sadly, that's just not what we got. This one just felt like the worst one to hate. I really wanted to like this one. It was doing so many cool things, and then it just kept fighting me back. Like I said before, I didn't want to go into this expecting to hate all three outright, but it turns out that's just what happened. It's very low-hanging fruit. I went into this trilogy with a fully open mind, and I can finally confirm this trilogy sucks. Two utterly lifeless beat-em-ups that made Spyro dark and gritty for no real reason, and one game with some genuine promise and just a lot holding it back. It's a shame. It really is. The idea of rebooting this series at that time wasn't the worst. If you recall, I liked it when Crash turned into a beat-em-up the first time. From what I can gather by researching online, the story is what makes these games special in the minds of those who played them when they were younger. I hear people tend to be pretty okay with the atmosphere and the characters that the world provides, but in my opinion, the fact that this was done to the Spyro the Dragon franchise, of all franchises, I can't help but feel like this effort was all pointless. They were really going all out with this idea too. They were even planning a movie at some point that obviously got canceled. But ultimately, in terms of the gameplay, no, it's not happening. I'm not playing this anymore. It is the job of the game to compel me to play through it. I shouldn't have to feel obligated to do so. And if these games had any semblance of the previous games, the ones that made Spyro a name in the first place, I would have been a lot more interested. Completely reworking what defines a Spyro game. That would have totally been possible to do, but they failed. Because, man, you know me, nothing quite speaks Spyro the Dragon like find a bucket. At least I can finally say that I've experienced what this trilogy is all about. And, boy, we're not even close to done with the Spyro franchise. The Legend games were released on portables, and as you are all well aware, Spyro then transformed into Skylanders. So we have plenty of material to work with over the next year or so, however long it takes me. But it's 2018, and Spyro is actually relevant again, and that is worth celebrating. So, got myself a somewhat clean bucket, and I think next time, Reignited Trilogy. See you then.
PC marinated chicken breasts, buttermilk marinated, crunchy home-style breading with a cayenne kick. Just eat them and eat them.
With over 300 new PC products every year, there's always something new to discover.
Hello, I'm CJ Miles from CJ's PJ Spade, and thanks to GoDaddy, my pajama business is going like a dream. Now, I'm introducing They're so comfortable, I can rest easy wherever I am. On a bus, on a ride, at a back cart recital. And thanks to GoDaddy's website builder, I can update my site from wherever, even in Memphis. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Check them out online. Visit GoDaddy to start your website today.
I cannot even begin to explain how hyped I was for this. Sure, this only got announced earlier this year, but we all kind of figured that this was going to happen anyway after Crash came back with the Insane trilogy. As you may recall, now give us Spyro the Dragon. Ha, you're welcome, Internet. Hell, I have been excited at the mere concept of this once games like Ratchet, Jack, and Sly Cooper all got their HD trilogies on PlayStation 3. I have already said this a bunch of times by now, but the original Spyro the Dragon trilogy played an integral part of my childhood. And after the franchise went in, let's just say, a direction that I wasn't really a fan of, Spyro then became a mere optional character in the Skylanders franchise, spawning just the friendliest and not at all terrifying Halloween costumes. But then, they finally did it. The Mad Lads actually did it. Spyro the Dragon got the remaster treatment. Also, he blazed up with Snoop Dogg. What the hell?
Spyro, reignited Trinity. I'm gonna go play this right now. Get up my face, man.
What is happening? Activision provided me a review code for the Reignited trilogy, and receiving that code was one of the most exciting moments I've had in recent memory. And after beating all 3 games and getting all the trophies within a week of getting the code, I didn't really sleep much that week. I can go ahead and echo what basically everyone has said at this point. This is a fantastic package of 3 really, really good platformers that if you're nostalgic for it, or you just want to play it for the first time ever, there's no doubt that you should get this. It is a high recommendation. That's not exactly what we're here to talk about today, though. When we have a game that is a remastering of something from back in the day, I feel it's more important to take a look at the differences between both versions as opposed to grading the games that each one gets a proper review. I already went pretty in depth with all 3 games a while back, but in short, they're all great 3D platformers with a ton of charm and variety. And to say that that has all been maintained here in the Reignited trilogy would be underselling it greatly. Like, wow, this game is so pretty. I didn't even want to move when I first landed in Artisans. I was too taken aback by how good it looked. It was then that it finally hit me like, wow, this is actually real. With all 3 games being worked on at basically the same time now, there is a level of consistency throughout all 3. Like that weird rolling move that I keep forgetting is in the first game, it's now in all 3. Okay, each game now has a toggleable map. Spyro 1 has some skill points, like 2 and 3 did. Sparks can point out missing gems from the start of each game, thank the heavens. And even though I love Carlos Alazraqui as the voice of Spyro in the first game, Tom Kenny reprises his role from 2 and 3, and now voices Spyro in all 3. That's very nice. And then graphically, I mean, just look at it. This is amazing. The level of detail in each and every world is pretty jaw-dropping, especially when compared to the source material. Special mention has to go to the lighting and the reflection work. Holy crap, it's so nice. The soundtrack has been redone as well, with this new dynamic touch. Basically, if you stand still, the music calms down. If you start charging, a galloping sound overlays the music. That's pretty cool. As a whole, the tunes to Spyro the Dragon are as good as ever. And even though I do like the idea of dynamic music, personally, I opted to turn that off. In general, I also prefer the original tracks too. The new ones just feel a little too soft, in my opinion. Very noticeably so with a less powerful fireworks factory. But luckily, those original soundtracks are here as well. Perfect. And then any and all cutscenes are so much fun to watch. This is now a full-on animated cartoon, and anytime one of the cutscenes was playing, I had a huge smile on my face. Seeing these characters that I loved watching growing up with such fine detail and great movement, oh, it's so good. And then Sparks waves at you sometimes, and oh, it's so cute. I felt weird about him having legs, but then he waves at you, and I'm on board with this. Also, the little light bar on the PlayStation 4 controller changes color depending on what color Sparks is. How is no one else talking about this? Now, when discussing the presentation, this is where any of my complaints really come in. The load times between levels are nearly twice as long as they were in the originals. Now, I did see this coming after Insane Trilogy had long load times at launch as well. It's still disappointing to see. At least in these, you get to move Spyro around. In Crash, we just had to deal with Aku Aku floating around like, hey, you ready to play? Just give it like an extra minute, I promise. They also got rid of the whole gems flying across the screen thing. That's pretty lame. There are the occasional frame drops as well, which is not a huge deal, but what is annoying, who in the hell thought that this level of motion blur was okay? I have never had an issue with motion blur in the past. This is the first time that spinning the camera too quickly actually kind of messed with my eyes. Eventually, I did train myself to just like look at Spyro's butt when I spun the camera, and that did help, but that's not something I should have had to do in the first place. Listen, man, I already have bad vision due to video games. The last thing I need is Spyro of all games to make me update my prescription. Hopefully some of these things are ironed out in a patch or an eventual PC release, but hey, I had to deal with a blurry Spyro during launch. I am damn well going to talk about it. And this part is pretty minor as well, but I think the credits were mishandled too. The sweeping landscapes from the original games, that was awesome, and it showed the locations from their respective games. Here, it's one uniform credits for all three games, and there is some cute concept art that I'm not going to really spoil if you haven't seen it, because it's really, really adorable, but then it just transitions into the typical credit scroll. That was kind of unfortunate. Obviously, none of this hampers the overall experience, because otherwise, boy, Toys for Bob nailed this. Spyro controls so damn well. Like the originals did support analog control, but here he is just smooth as butter and an absolute joy to control. I was a little worried at first because the gliding seems to be a bit nerfed in terms of the distance that you can travel, but conversely, the charge jumps are kind of buffed. So eventually, I was able to make any jump that the game asked me to do. I just had to change my mindset of how to tackle some of them. And once I did, man, jumping, gliding, hovering, it all came naturally. And now there is camera control on the right analog stick with shooting fire set to the back right button, which is honestly beautiful. I love this so much. But yeah, it may be too early to say if this is the definitive Spyro experience, but it is damn well close. Now that's all the general stuff out of the way. With the Spyro the Dragon trilogy, each game in said trilogy offered its own brand of original content and original ideas. So the fine folks at Toys for Bob, they had a lot of stuff to cover. So we're going to go through each game individually, talk about some of the good, some of the bad. We're going to go really in depth here. Let's just get started with the first one, Spyro the Dragon. Hey, remember when I said Nasty Nork was probably watching this interview on TV or something? Like, how else would he be able to see this video feed? Ha! Called it. So Spyro 1 seems like it had the most care put into it. The original game is incredibly bare bones and aesthetically pretty flat and empty. You go into a level, you get the things, you go out, rinse and repeat. Obviously, that is the same here. However, the creative liberties taken throughout the entire game really make this classic adventure shine. While every dragon in the original was basically just a recolor of another one, some of them even reused the same voice clips. Thank you for releasing me. You shut your damn mouth. Now every dragon is completely unique, with not only original animation that looks amazing and really good voice work, but new outfits and styles too. Every single dragon stands out with their own personalities, and even in some of their exit animations, they're just so full of life.
Oh, it's great to see you.
Some of the "thank you for releasing me" dragons even have modified dialogue.
You should always check your progress by accessing the guidebook in the cards menu.
Even the different balloonists, they speak too. Like, wow, okay, that totally threw me for a loop. And I have seen some people say that the Norks are now just a bit too ugly. Wasn't that the whole point? The entire premise behind the original game's plot is Nasty Nork being called ugly and then he goes on a rampage. I really wouldn't have it any other way. Really, everything in this game has been kept faithful to the originals. I love all of the modified enemy designs, and all of the credit in the world here. They even replicated some of the original's weird sound effects. Oh, I love it so much. But without a doubt, it's the landscapes that keep this game more interesting from start to finish. The levels just pop more than ever, and I couldn't help myself from just stopping and taking the world in. Like, for example, Dark Hollow, it now doubles as a library. That's really neat. The same can also be said for the flight stages. There are some noticeable changes to how Spyro controls here. I've noticed that, like, the flame hitbox as well as turning speed aren't quite as precise as the originals, but Before long, I was knocking these stages out just as smoothly as I always do. And as for the boss fights, well, I mean, these guys have always been pretty lame. There's not much more you can do with them. You can't really alter what they've always been, a slight little obstacle in some of the game's shorter levels, though like a cutscene or something introducing them would have been nice, instead of just them being there. And of course, that does mean we end up with a very easy chasing sequence with Nasty Nork, which, the end of the game is still pretty anticlimactic. But at the very least, now I know what Blowhard is supposed to be. I really couldn't tell with this pixel vomit. So while the core gameplay of the original stays the same as we all expected, with it being pretty repetitive from level to level, the more interesting and varied artistic choices in regards to the levels and the free to dragons, as well as Spyro just feeling so much better to play as, this is definitely an improvement over the original. Literally the only part about this entire thing that kinda sucks is the enemies in Twilight Harbor. They man like these goo guns now. And say what you will about guns in cartoony games, but at least be kind of consistent. If Pinstripe can still rock his infinite ammo Tommy gun, I don't know why we gotta resort to, like, purple slime. That's very weird censorship. There is some nostalgic charm to the PlayStation 1, for sure, but man, this made me re-love Spyro 1 all over again. The first Spyro, much like the first Crash, had the strongest impression it had to make when it came to being remade. There were a lot of parts about the original game that just felt kind of outdated, and I think when it came to this remake, they damn well nailed it. But now we move on to the sequel. Spyro 2 added a lot to the core formula, so there's a lot of stuff I'm kind of worried about, but let's just see how they do. Time for Ripto's Rage. They didn't even call it Gateway to Glimmer in the European Reignited trilogy. I guess America wins. Spyro 2 is a much more character-driven adventure. We are immediately introduced to 3 new characters as soon as the game begins. I bring this up because I really just want to reiterate how well animated this game is. Oh, they made Allura like super cute now. I love it. And then when you first dive into Summer Forest, oh man, the developers totally had to know that these hubs were totally beloved by fans. They are absolutely gorgeous and just as fun to explore as they always have been. So the main difference with Spyro 2 comes in a stronger variety of level themes and the addition of a challenge-based structure. With each world now having characters to inhabit it, there is a lot to consider here when it comes to preserving the original ideas behind each of them. Like with any of the other cutscenes in the game, each level is bookended with scenes showing the world's citizens having a problem, and then life after Spyro comes through and fixes things. And just like how they were on PS1, they are just as great here. Some of them have even been modified to make a little more sense. Like in the end of Heracos, one of the Electrons just like slaps the other one for no real reason. As funny as that was, I'm not gonna lie. Now, that no longer happens. Nice touch, makes a little more sense. The one guy in Magma Cone still burns a lava-filled death. Glad they maintained that. The guns, that's a little bit extreme, but dying from lava, for kids, rest in peace, my guy. And since we've already confirmed that Spyro basically controlled perfectly, the main point of concern now is if the different minigame challenges work as intended. And yeah, they pretty much nailed that too. It almost ends up being kind of uninteresting to talk about here because, like, really, if you played Spyro 2 before, that about covers it. Nothing really stands out as being much better or worse than it used to be. If anything, some of the missions, like the infamous trolley one, are made a little easier. Like whenever you switch lanes, it slows you down a little bit, giving you just an extra second to judge where you have to go next. Makes the ride a whole lot more pleasant.
Travel with the trolley, eh?
Not anymore, you big stupid idiot! The camera has also been altered for a few of the challenges too, sort of maintaining the standard game's camera instead of opting for these challenge-specific ones. It's minor and it never really causes any issues, so sure, good change. And going back to the character designs, man, I love them. I love them so much. Most of them still give off the same vibes as their original looks. The children in Scorch are a little weird looking, but I guess they were supposed to be standard human kids here, so fine. And then speaking of Scorch, poor Bombo got censored too. Now he's just Bob. Okay, fine. I guess I can accept that one. The name Bombo is a little bit more extreme. He still sucks too. And that same level of weirdness goes for Agent Zero too. I know he was kind of just like a blob of big pink flesh before, but I don't know. He makes me kind of uncomfortable now. And while the voice acting, for the most part, is top-notch, some of the purposefully bad voice acting in Zephyr, I kind of miss it. Romeo! Romeo!
Wherefore art thou, Romeo?
It's like they missed the whole point of those characters sounding bizarre.
My pencil! My pencil!
Okay, no, you've made that objectively worse. And then there's the dancing skeleton. You remember that thing, right? It was pretty funny in the original. But, well, now he flosses, and the music has air horns in it. Oh, it's gross. Oh, hey, welcome fruit. Nice. Essentially, when talking about Spyro 2, for the most part, the high bar of quality from the original has been maintained, and many of the issues are really just nitpicks due to nostalgia kicking in. That being said, though, I did have a couple of problems here. The cameras for the boss battles could be a little bit better. Gulp, in particular, got way too much of a difficulty spike. I'm not sure why that is. Thankfully, though, the Ripto fight is still really cool. Was pretty worried about that. I'm not gonna lie. That's one of my favorite fights of the trilogy. It's just as awesome as ever. Thank goodness. Oh yeah, and now when you have a power-up, Spyro's entire design changes. Oh, that's so cool. There's also a pretty noticeable difference when it comes to swimming, too. For as perfect as the rest of the game feels, for some reason, they added this weird inertia system to swimming, where Spyro now slows down to a stop and leans into his turns, rather than just having super sharp movement. I was able to make do with it for the most part, but it's a surprising misstep. This same inertia idea is present during the flight levels as well, but again, I was able to make do. In those, a lot of the turns that you make are broad enough to where I'm totally fine with somewhat sluggish movement. It's not ideal, but I can do it. They also didn't fix the crap where if you do the stupid alchemist mission before getting the headbutt, you have to do it again when you do get the headbutt. That is literally the worst part of the game. Why did you not change that? Top 10 most annoying characters in video games. Number 1, the Alchemist. Ultimately, Spyro 2 had the least amount of work put into it since, in my opinion, it was the one that needed it the least. Controls for basically everything, aside from swimming, are damn near perfect. The quality of challenges has been maintained. The game looks and sounds incredible, as did the first game. And barring the censorship in Colossus, I think you should torch that game. I think you should kill that thing. Oh my god, dude. Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage is still a great time. They did remove that sick double jump exploit though. I knew they were gonna. Like, it's obvious, it's a glitch, it's not supposed to be in there. It still stings. And now we move on to Spyro 3 Year of the Dragon. You see, when it comes to the trilogy thus far, the first game had a lot of stuff it had to add to make it level with the other two games. Spyro 2 just kind of had to maintain and simply be better looking and better playing. Spyro 3, though, there was a lot more added to this one. It is a beefy game. Alright, to prevent me repeating myself, I'll keep Spyro's part pretty short. For the third game in a row here, yeah, he plays exactly the same, meaning basically perfect. And just like in Spyro 2, the quality of minigames has been maintained as well, as have the modifications to the character designs. I was really hoping that we would get some sort of level opening and closing cutscenes like in the second game, but we didn't. Fine, I guess we'll keep it faithful. And yeah, once again, I am totally on board with most of these character design changes. They really all do feel like an upgraded version of their original selves, being similar and new at the same time. Like just look at Crazy Ed. I love him. He's my favorite design. Also, can I get a hello to Bianca, now looking like Lola Bunny from Space Jam? Certainly a whole lot better than... Yeah, but as we all well Well, no, they added a ton of different gameplay styles into this third adventure. A handful of different vehicles, skateboarding of all things, and a bunch of new characters. This was the game I was worried about the most going into it, and thankfully, I can confirm, just like everything else in this package, they are all pretty great, if not just as good, meaning still slightly annoying as the originals. Like the skateboarding, it is such a minuscule part of the entire trilogy. I was really nervous that this was going to be bad, and some of the physics are slightly off, but it's more or less what we're used to. That being a not as good Tony Hawk Pro Skater clone. And yes, don't you worry your pretty little heads, you can indeed ride on a squid skateboard. Yo, these developers care. First up, Sheila the Kangaroo. She already played fine in the original, no major complaints here, but she still manages to control better in Reignited. She feels a lot less heavy, her kicks come out faster, her jumping, it just seems more satisfying. That could just be me. But yeah, no complaints in the original, no complaints here. She controls great. And she's also, like, super adorable. Oh my goodness, she has this really cute hairstyle now and this, like, ranger vest. Oh my goodness, I love it. Next up, there's Sergeant Bird. He still takes a little bit of time to get used to, but he is nowhere near as stiff as he used to be. And the rockets that he shoots seem to have a way stronger homing ability now, making combat way less annoying. He also, like, waddles when he walks. Oh my god, he's adorable too. Then we have Bentley the Yeti, my least favorite from the original. He is still pretty slow and clunky to play as. That's just how he is. But it's now presented with an over-the-shoulder camera. I like that. So I guess that's better. Yeah, he's also a lot furrier this time around. So, okay, sure, third time's the charm. He's more adorable too. And of course, we have Agent 9. Oh man, it's a third-person shooter now? With totally separate camera control, you can move one way and aim in another. Oh, you can aim up and down too? Like it's like an actual game now. Oh, this is so much better. Even the first-person segment is way improved. Thank you. And, adorable? All of their segments are simply better than they were before. So while it is still a little jarring that they added as many different gameplay styles as they did back in the day, I'm just glad they did the best with what they got. These are great. But then there's the matter of Sparks' levels too. Those segments are basically exactly the same. I was hoping that they would have adapted like a twin stick approach where you move with the left stick and then aim and shoot with the right. But whatever, it is what it is. Oh dear God, what the hell is that? That's, okay, sure, yeah, alright. I will say though, for as much improvement as Spyro 3 got, the game also seemed to have the most issues between all three. Like, I mentioned before that the whole inertia while flying thing didn't really bother me a ton before, but then there's the twin dragon fight, and that was already annoying in the original, and now there's the worst flying controls. They made the fight more annoying. That's cool, and since now the speedways have racing missions as well, with a bunch of speed boosts that you have to go through to win said races, it further emphasizes that they really should have kept the sharp movement here. I had quite a few glitches pop up too, way more so than the other two. Nothing overly massive, though I did end up soft locking the game here as the puppy wouldn't go on the Switch, so I couldn't progress until I killed myself. That was strange. The camera can sometimes goof up with Sergeant Bird in tight sections. That's annoying. Oh, and also, boxing with Bentley still sucks. There ain't nothing anyone can do to save that.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime.
But back on the positives, the boss fights are way better here than they were in Spyro 2. Look at how zoomed out the camera is for these. This is what Crush and Gulp needed. It's also nice that I get to see this one cutscene actually play in-game. I mentioned this in my Spyro 3 video, but since I don't have the greatest hits version, that cutscene just straight up doesn't play in the first release of that game, so I didn't even know it existed until like a few years ago. And yes, that means the greatest hits version of the soundtrack was used as well. I'm sure that's going to make a lot of people happy. So as a whole, Spyro 3 Year of the Dragon was handled shockingly well. Like I said, this was the one that I was the most worried about. And as it turns out, Toys for Bob wasn't even too responsible for this one. Sanzaru Games, the makers of Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, was brought on board to handle all of these different gameplay styles. I'm assuming this was just done to speed up the development time, but thankfully, they did a pretty great job. And actually, if I'm being totally candid with you, I may end up liking Year of the Dragon more than Ripto's Rage in this collection. Like, the issues that I had with the PS1 release was that the entire game kind of felt disjointed. A good chunk of the segments with the new characters just felt kind of janky and maybe even rushed, which, like I mentioned already, has been addressed. And as minor as it was, I didn't like how each of these portals had a loading screen to go along with them. I like exploring these worlds for exploration's sake, not just finding a portal and then waiting for the minigame to load. But now the load times are almost instantaneous, making everything just so much more seamless. It feels really good. Guys, Spyro the Dragon's back, and that feels really good. So, yeah, I had a lot of stuff in mind, a lot of things I wanted to say about the Spyro Reignited trilogy. It had mighty big boots to fill, and I do think Toys for Bob really nailed what they were setting out to do. This isn't just, hey, it's another classic game getting the remaster treatment, oh, joy! This is pure nostalgia, treated with the love and care that, quite frankly, it deserves. And it's really, really, really awesome. Ripto's Rage was already my favorite going into the Reignited trilogy, so I'm happy with what I got here. I really didn't expect much more out of that one. Spyro 1 and Year of the Dragon, on the other hand, got massively improved. So while it may feel kind of uneven that Spyro 2 didn't get as much of an upgrade, to me, I just look at it as all three games now being on equal footing. I'm really not sure how I would end up ranking each of these games in this collection. It's a little bit too soon for me to fully tell, but what I can say is, a few issues aside that will hopefully be patched out, Toys for Bob and Sanzaro Games completely knocked this out of the park. Spyro the Dragon, Ripto's Rage, and Year of the Dragon. The Reignited trilogy is an excellent way to experience these classics, and I can only hope that this leads to a bright future for good old Purple Boy here. It is long overdue. So I did end the Insane Trilogy video asking for Spyro, and then we got Spyro. So clearly I have some magical powers here that I didn't know I had. I need to pull from that again if I want to get another classic game remade from the ground up. Okay, let's see here. We got Crash, we got Spyro, Medieval, Wipeout is a thing. Also, can't forget about that. What else? Ape Escape. There you go. Give us Ape Escape. Ape Escape, the Recaptured trilogy. Rolls right off the tongue. You can take the name. I won't ask for royalties. I think this one's next. Sounds good to me. Yeah, that's all I got. I'm going to go play these Spyro games again. Bye. Well, somebody's going to get pissed off at this video. So, Sonic Forces. It's, oof. I will say right off the bat that I genuinely really like the quote-unquote Boost trilogy of Sonic games. Sure, the Werehog is really, really dumb, but playing it is fine enough, I suppose. So when we found out we were going to get a fourth Boost game, I was actually interested, but also puzzled. 4 games with the same main gameplay style. Okay, I guess we'll see how things pan out. The hype for this game has been really rough, too. Mania took up every ounce of people's interest, and if anything, it kind of made Forces worse as a result. I didn't like Sonic Forces. I think it's a bad game and a worse Sonic game. And listen, I know that talking negatively about Sonic the Hedgehog is just going to leave the most interesting comments down below. So I will do my best to explain why I think this way. And also, warning, we're going to go into full-on spoiler territory here. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but it's best you have a heads up at the get-go. Conceptually, Sonic Forces does something pretty unique. After the millionth romp through Green Hill, because nobody remembers Emerald Hill, Dr. Eggman summons villains of Sonic's past, as well as his own original fan character, Infinite, and they all beat the crap out of Sonic, and Sonic dies. Nah, just kidding. Actually, he's been held prisoner for 6 months, constantly being tortured by Eggman. This is real. I mean, yeah, this is a definite darker Sonic plot than we're used to. He ends up being totally fine in the long run and shows no effects of the whole being tortured thing, so it's really only told through text rather than shown. But that may be for the best. I don't think I'm ready for another gritty Sonic reboot. While Sonic was captured, Eggman successfully took over the world, and in response, a resistance group was formed with all of Sonic's friends being a part of it. And this is where your creatable avatar comes into play. And actually, this is pretty cool. The options that you have here are pretty substantial, and you constantly get a ton more accessories to change up your look at a moment's notice. A lot of us had our own fan characters when we were younger, so it's pretty cool that an official product lets us put them in the game. This is my chance to create the original Sonic character of my dreams, the one who will help restore order to the world. Perfect. I will name him, I don't know, Flapper? Because he's a bird? Yeah, sure. Flapper the bird? My original fan character, don't steal. Soon enough, Sonic breaks out of prison thanks to Flapper's help. And the rest of the story is the Resistance doing stuff to stop Eggman and Infinite's control over the world. Oh, and Classic Sonic is also here. That about covers why he's in the story. Just look at his face. You can tell he just wants to go back to Mania. The idea now as well is that he's from a different universe rather than a different time. Nice consistency? Honestly, the plot is just okay. It's a neat idea, but it was clearly not fleshed out. Infinite is a run-of-the-mill villain who comes and goes without leaving really any impact. And whenever anything remotely interesting is about to start up in a cutscene, it quickly fades to black and they begin to explain things in these static voice boxes instead. They never really show how much of this grip Eggman has over the world. There's like 1 or 2 flashback cutscenes that kind of get the job done, as well as some background details in a few of the stages. But really, things are just darker and less colorful than normal. Oh, and spoilers, those villains that were brought back, they're all creations thanks to Infinite's Phantom Ruby, because the game just had to be tied to Mania for some reason. You fight Zavok really early on, Metal Sonic quite a ways in, both fights are super easy. The real Shadow deals with the fake Shadow with one nice roundhouse kick. And Chaos just doesn't show up after like the 3rd cutscene. That's terrible. Eggman's henchmen, Orbot and Cubot are also here, but they only ever speak in like 1 cutscene. This feels so unfinished. I am well aware that you could argue the importance of story in a Sonic game, but they went out of their way to push things in a new direction and just didn't seem to care about fleshing things out. Gameplay-wise, it is cut up into 3 different styles. Modern Sonic, your custom avatar, and Classic Sonic. Modern is basically exactly where you're used to at this point. You build up your boost meter, and you blast through enemies. Well, when the level design is not being dumb enough to give you a boost before a spot where you shouldn't use it, aside from that, and once again, there are plenty, and you can argue too many, 2D sections as well. And for some reason, the in-air controls are way less precise than they used to be. Anytime you try to perfect your jumps, it always feels like a luck of the draw. And also, while we're on the subject, there is also this free downloadable episode Shadow, offering some backstory to Infinite, as well as a playable Shadow for the first time in years. However, it is only 3 really short, somewhat unique levels, and he plays almost identically to Sonic, aside from this enemy dash move that he has, making the option to eventually play as him in Sonic stages uninteresting since he is more or less a skin. Second up is the Avatar, and really it doesn't play much different than modern Sonic. Just instead of a boost, you have this gun that is based on the Wisps, that is basically always overpowered, allowing you to blast through the dozens of enemies that they toss at you with the press of a button. Or, if you collect the right capsule, basically skip large chunks of the levels. And also, why are we still using the Wisps? Wasn't the whole point of them that they were these space aliens you were trying to save and you were using them to save their planets, but now they're just here as ammunition? Okay, cool. When the Avatar was officially announced, I figured it would be a little bit more like an adventure style of gameplay, but this is really just a slightly different modern Sonic. I mean, the city level for both is nearly identical, and they're about an hour apart in the story. Why? And what is probably the most painful of all is that the stages are ridiculously short and lacking anything that would make them memorable, aside from very sporadic set pieces. In my opinion, there are 2 fairly good Sonic stages and 1 pretty good Avatar stage, and that is as far as I would go. But even then, when things start to get good, it just ends. Just comparing this to Generations, even in that game's Green Hill, there was far more stuff happening that required you to be attentive. The Avatar also has this grappling hook that they use too, but most of the time they just use it without your control. And with the level designs as uninteresting as they are, it is crazy that they didn't try to make that mechanic more engaging. There's a small handful of co-op stages too, where both modern Sonic and Avatar tackle a stage together. You control them both at the same time, similar to, say, Sonic Heroes, and the one in charge changes depending on when you boost or when you use your gun. And in concept, these are pretty cool, but again, since both characters feel nearly identical, you can play nearly the entirety of all of these stages without switching once. In Heroes, each of the 3 characters had distinct benefits, and you could pick and choose different paths accordingly. Here, you're either Sonic, who can occasionally use a gun, or you're the Avatar, who can occasionally start boosting. Sometimes the game will do this double boost thing too, where you mash the button as fast as you can, the 2 of them fist bump because, that's the name of the theme song, and they both boost on ahead at maximum speed. Or you could just see what would happen if you don't press the button, and then they just stumble around for a second and do the boost anyway. You don't even need to press a single